Hello. Hi, Lisa. You're muted. I was just stopping to say hi. I'm Ebony. I'm the communications coordinator for the Center for Community Solutions. So if you see Danny's pictures, because I'm using her profile, her
I'm
account.
actually using Lisa's profile. My name is Jory Novotny. I'm Director of External Affairs here at the Food Banks, and Lisa is unfortunately, about to give testimony in the Finance HHS subcommittee. So we had really bad timing, but I'm standing in for her, and I'm using her computer because she had the panelist link. So.
Oh, okay. Well, welcome, Jory.
Yes.
We'll start at 12 o'clock.
Yeah, I just wanted to log in early to make sure I didn't have any problems with her setup.
Log in everything. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have one attendee. Hi, Brianna. We will start at 12 o'clock. This will be recorded and available after the session. So I'm going to put myself back on mute and do some logistics. See you in a few.
Good afternoon or morning. This is Betsy Suver from ODJFS.
Hi, Betsy. This is Ebony Thornton with the Center for Community Solutions. I am filling in for Danny, our Director of Communications.
Okay. Hi, Ebony.
I will be running your technical assistance for this webinar.
Great, thank you.
And we will probably start at 12 o'clock.
Okay, sounds good. I'm gonna go off video until then.
Yes.
Okay.
Be invited to just say a few words today at this conference. And I see the conference is getting towards 200 people already, which is just great that so many of you are really committed to this cause, willing to learn more, to reach out to support students and really people throughout the state in need in still an anxious and challenging time for us all. First, I want to also thank the Center for Community Solutions. I've actually used your data and your research for years. As a legislator for a long time, really found these kinds of meetings and some of the information that's provided really helpful as policymakers. So thank you for that, and then appreciate reacquainting myself with the group. Also want you to know that during this pandemic, during the especially challenging times we've been in, I've learned even more how important in the higher education space our presidents, our key officials throughout on campuses throughout the state, how impactful they can be on young people's lives and even not so young people's lives who are an important part of our higher education family across the state. Let me give you one example. Right when the pandemic hit, within a few days after that, I talked to the president of Lorain Community College, Lorain County Community College, Marsha Bollinger, and her first response that she said to me was, we've got to keep our food pantry, we've got to keep this available to our students because already there's anxiousness about unemployment, about food insecurity, and regardless of what that costs, we need to do that. We know we're going to need to do that for quite some time. And that really just struck me as the sense of urgency and the understanding that higher education, that our campuses must be about supporting and respecting the whole student, the whole person, the families. And you've got healthcare challenges, you've got unemployment issues, and trying to maintain a semblance of education during this difficult time, it just means that we have to do everything we can. We have to do as much as possible. And so when this opportunity came up to speak to you today, I'm reminded of kind of wrestling with the messages we were getting from the federal government on the SNAP program and the eligibility. But as soon as we knew pretty much precisely what the ground rules would be, I sent a letter out on February 24th. I hope some of you have it or have seen it. I have it in my hand. And we sent that out to the higher education leadership throughout the state. And I got responses back from community college presidents, four-year public presidents, and independent colleges, universities, thanking me for doing that, wanting to reach out and say, yes, we're going to elevate this. We're going to make this available to our students. And so really that's the type of sense of urgency and reaching out that really is important in this state. And it's always important. And some of these challenges have just been exacerbated by what we've been going through for a full year now. So I just wanted to say that we're going to continue to be in this with you. I'm not going to be able to stay on for the entire program, but I know I've got several key ODHE staff people who are taking notes and involved and engaged. They will report back with me anything else that we think we can do to be a strong partner in working with you and helping you. Governor DeWine talks with me all the time about making sure we're reaching out and supporting students and what he likes to call wraparound services and additional supports to make those who need and deserve just a little bit more support to make sure that they can go the distance. Because we've got 1.5 million Ohioans with some college, but no degree or credential. And that's not a positive thing for them, for their family, for the state, for the taxpayers. So we need to do a better job of reaching out and making sure that we get the kind of attainment, the achievement that really works for families, really works for students. Not an easy task, but a really important one. So with that, again, thank you for Hope for allowing me to say hello to everyone. Please engage with our college universities in every way you can, and as well as our staff at ODHE, and they will let me know what else we can do and what you would like us to do, just to be the best partners that we can be to be helpful in this challenging time. But again, I'm impressed that so many people are a part of this conference today, and look forward to working with you in the future for sure.
Thank you so much, Chancellor, for joining us this afternoon. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate your kind words, and this has been great to have you here today. Thank you so much.
I'll stay on for a few moments, and when I need to get off, I will. But again, this isn't just a one-day say hello. We're gonna be in this with you for as long as we're able to.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Ebony, we're gonna go to the agenda. Next slide, please. Awesome. So today's agenda is here on the right of the screen. So Jory Novotny is going to speak on behalf of Lisa Hamler-Fugit from the Ohio Association of Food Banks. Lisa is currently testifying in front of a legislative committee for the budget, which is incredibly important. So Jory is filling in today, and I'm very happy to have her here. She's been working alongside me this whole ride. And then Betsy Suver from the Ohio Department of Jobs and Family Services will give us an overview of the new opportunities with SNAP and explain SNAP in depth. This is her world. She knows it forward and backward, and she's amazing. And then Tracy Green from Lorain County Community College is gonna tell us how institutions of higher education can support access to SNAP. And then finally, I will go over some outreach and actions that colleges and universities can take. And then after that, we'll have whatever time is left, we'll go through questions and answers. And anything that's not answered, we'll be more than happy to follow up with you. And Jory and my information and our emails are at the last slide here. So please feel free to bug us at any time, anytime, and we will be more than happy to help you. And next slide, please.
Thank you, Hope, and thank you, Chancellor Gardner. I'm happy to be here on Lisa's behalf. I know that she regrets having to miss this. It was unfortunate timing. She's with House Finance HHS Subcommittee as we speak, but I just want to first of all thank Chancellor Gardner so much. I think that the attendance today is a testament to your leadership prioritizing this issue. And so we're just so grateful that so many folks in the higher education community have recognized the need to prioritize this, and we're excited to be part of the partnership, along with the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services, who has been a long time and fantastic partner of ours, as well as, of course, the Center for Community Solutions. So my name is Jory Novotny. I serve as Director of External Affairs here at the Ohio Association of Food Banks. And I'll just take you through setting the stage for why we all share a concern about this issue and the basics around what the college food insecurity landscape looks like before I turn it over to Betsy for some of the nitty-gritty details about how you can step in and help us. Next slide, Ebony. So just to set a stage for you that we have some recent data actually coming out right at the beginning of the pandemic, which Chancellor Gardner pointed to, that shows that more than half, nearly 3 in 5 actually, students expressed that they were experiencing basic needs insecurity, and about half of students at two-year institutions were experiencing food insecurity. Food insecurity is defined as not always knowing where your next meal might be coming from. And of course, a very large prevalence of students at more traditional long-term four-year institutions, which perhaps we think of as more of the students with less of those barriers, we're also experiencing food insecurity. So it is a widespread issue across a variety of campuses and institutions, not only in Ohio, but throughout the country. Unfortunately, college food insecurity has often been normalized. We even, we're making lighthearted jokes this morning before we got started with the webinar about the old stories about ramen noodles. And we just want to emphasize that that's not normal, that's not okay. And we know that to promote student success, student learning, student retention, and wraparound services, as Chancellor Gardner mentioned, we have to make sure that students have nutritious, wholesome food accessible and available and ready for them to meet that need. Next slide, Ebony. So college students are actually often more vulnerable to food insecurity than others in the general population. They have, in many cases, more limited financial resources. The buying power of the federal aid that they do receive decreases as expenses rise, and especially household expenses, including food, as well as shelter costs, transportation, and other basic needs continue to rise. So they're really vulnerable, and we saw that, as Chancellor Gardner mentioned from the outset, how that was exacerbated by the pandemic. Food insecurity is really a threat to student success. Next slide. It impacts academic achievement, of course, wellness, behavior, all kinds of factors that have bearing on student retention and graduation rates. Excuse me. So this slide talks about the changes we've seen in the makeup of our student body, which of course is not news to any of you attending this webinar in the higher education space, but just to shine a bright light on it, over 7.5 million college students across the country are 25 and older, and more than 1 in 5 college students are parents. We have many students who are entering higher education with unique situations that make them even more vulnerable to food insecurity and inability to stretch their dollars enough to afford healthy, wholesome food. Additionally, estimates even prior to the pandemic showed that more than half of college students that are eligible for SNAP under the more traditional and more restrictive federal guidelines were not participating, even though they might have been eligible, despite clear evidence of food insecurity and economic instability, which is another reason why we're so excited about your partnership in raising awareness about the program, elevating it as a priority for your student body, as a tool in your toolbox for promoting student success and student retention. Next slide. So you all have embraced this issue and recognized it. In many cases for years, Ohio has such a robust and fantastic higher education system, and many institutions, both community colleges as well as public and private four-year institutions, have recognized that meeting basic needs is critical for their student body. So well before the pandemic, financial strain and college affordability were among the primary reasons that people chose not to pursue higher education, or that prevented students from actually finishing and obtaining those degrees and certifications. Many of your campuses have created student food pantries, for example, to help improve student food security, often in partnership with our member food banks. And, our fantastic partners with the Lorain County Community College will share more, just as an example of their experience in a little bit, about their work improving student food and economic security. So we have seen and recognized, and I just want to applaud that all of you have been at the table on this, and we're excited to encourage even a further leap into promoting access to this federal benefit to help further that support for your students. Next slide. And actually you can skip ahead to the next one. Thank you. So SNAP is truly our first and most effective line of defense against hunger. And you will hear my boss, Lisa, and all of us at the various food banks across the state talk about how much more SNAP is able to do for the people we serve than we are. We, of course, are humbled and grateful to be available to people in need, students, as well as all of our families, seniors, and kids throughout the state. But SNAP provides 9 meals for every 1 meal we're able to provide. And beyond that, SNAP allows people to go into their local store, spend funds at their local grocer or retailer, at their local farmer's market, choose the foods that meet their needs if they have dietary restrictions, or other food preferences, so that the food is going less to waste and meeting their nutrition needs, keeping that revenue flowing while putting nutritious food on the table for people with low incomes. We just think SNAP is just a wonderful example of meeting basic needs while also stimulating local economies, which is the best thing we can do, especially right now. Next slide. So in case you're not familiar with SNAP, it stands for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. It was formerly referred to as food stamps. Next slide, Ebony, thank you. So it was called food stamps for a long time. Several years ago, it was rebranded to SNAP, or Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. You may also hear it referred to in Ohio. It's called the Food Assistance Program, often also referred to as nutrition assistance, or you might see it referred to as EBT, which stands for Electronic Benefits Transfer, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But all of those kinds of terms go back to the same program, the largest federal nutrition assistance program. All of the benefits through SNAP are completely federally funded. So these are funds that state of Ohio taxpayers have already contributed to, that are owed back to them by the feds to help them access the food they need at their local economies. It is a state administered program, and in Ohio, it's as county administered as well, in partnership with the state. So the state and counties do share in the cost of administering the program. But the state of Ohio also has a lot of autonomy over some of the eligibility requirements. So Betsy will go into a little bit more in just a bit about some of those details. And I'll just close with the final slide, just to reflect and hit home why SNAP is important and how it helps. These benefits are put on what's basically like a debit card. It's an electronic benefits transfer card, or EBT, and those benefits can only be used to purchase groceries. You have to be a licensed EBT vendor to be able to accept those funds. So it is geared specifically toward promoting the whole nutrition of our citizens. And currently, nearly 1.5 million Ohioans use SNAP to help them buy enough healthy food to meet their household's needs. It doesn't normally provide enough benefits to feed a person or a family for the entire month, but it is very critical to helping them fill out that grocery shopping budget. And we just really think that, well, first of all, we're really thrilled. We're really thrilled again that Chancellor Gardner and so many other leaders in the higher education community in Ohio are prioritizing access to SNAP for students. And we know that we can all work together to reduce stigma around participating in the program. No one should feel hesitant at all, especially now, about accessing this program. They can look at it really as the students can look at it really as part of a holistic package to help them afford their path towards securing the degree or certificate that they're pursuing. So we're really excited about you being interested in partnering with us to get students connected to this. And I just want to turn it over to Betsy with my sincere thanks to her for all of her partnership on this effort. Betsy, take it away.
Thank you, Jory. I'd just like to thank Hope and the Community Center for Community Solutions and the Ohio Association of Food Banks and Higher Education for having me here today and partnering with us on this, as you said, very important program and getting the word out. How SNAP works, Ebony, next slide, please, is that there's financial and non-financial criteria for qualifying. Generally, the financial requirements is that the group or the individual, the group of people who purchase and prepare food together have to meet a gross income test first. You'll see on the slide what those income tests are. It is the 130% federal poverty level. Once they pass the gross income test, that's when we start looking at deductions we can take from the income to determine their SNAP allotment amount. Things that we consider, if they're working, there's an earned income deduction, there's a standard deduction that every household gets. We look at housing and utility expenses, childcare expenses, medical expenses for certain individuals. Those are the sort of things we look at. Next slide, please. How to apply for SNAP in Ohio. Individuals can submit a paper application at their local county job and family services. There's an online application through ohiobenefits.gov. And most of our counties have a telephonic application available. Currently, it's not available in every county, but most of them do have it. And then after they get that or submit the application, there's an interview that has to be completed. That can be done in person or on phone. And then we do have a lot of interfaces with other organizations, federal organizations, to verify certain things like income. But there are some things that the individual would have to supply on their own, such as like a rent statement or their utility bill, if it can't be located through one of our interface. And then during that interview, they're advised of their rights and responsibilities. And then if they are approved for benefits, they'll receive what Jory was referring to as that electronic benefit transfer card. And we'll get more into that card in a little bit. And next slide, please. If someone were to just randomly ask me, are college students eligible for SNAP? I would be like, well, it depends. It's not a very clear-cut answer. I'll say the general statement is, if any student is enrolled at least half-time in an institution of higher education, they're generally not eligible. However, I feel like we have 1,000,001 exemptions. But really what it is, there's 9 different ones you can see on the screen right now. And you'll see 2 of them are relate to having a child. And then one of them is participating in a state or federal work study program. I point out those that one because it's coming up in our next slide. But I do want to point out that, this webinar started as regarding the 2 new student exemptions, but I think this is important too because Jory mentioned that 1 in 5 students is a parent, and I think this is another way schools can help encourage students to apply, that if they do have a child but maybe aren't meeting one of the 2 new exemptions, any of these other 9 can help qualify students for SNAP. Oh, I did want to say one other thing. I'm sorry. On our application, it includes the programs for Ohio Works First, which is cash assistance for families, and Medicaid. And soon, in about a year, childcare will be on that application as well, publicly funded childcare. So if your students are needing those wraparound services beyond just SNAP, that is an all-encompassing application that they can apply for those benefits as well. Okay, Ebony, I am ready for the next slide. So the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021 that was signed earlier this year expanded this college student eligibility with 2 temporary new exemptions. The first one relates back to the work study. It used to say participating in a work study, but now all they have to do is that they are eligible to participate in a work study. And the second one is completely new, and this is students with an expected family contribution, or EFC, of 0. And that can be verified on the FAFSA, but I know template letters were sent out to the colleges and universities that we all work together on to create that could be used as a verification of the EFC or the work study eligibility. whatever's easiest for that student, because that is something that they'll have to have verified to prove that they meet the exemption to qualify for SNAP. Okay, next slide. Currently, the maximum benefit for one individual is $234 per month. You know, that is the max. The benefit may vary depending on their income and expenses, but that is the most that they could be eligible to receive. This is currently a 15% increase from the original amount, which was closer to 200. The Consolidated Appropriations Act increased it by 15% through at least June. We're not sure if that's going to continue further, but as of right now, it is $234. And then also during the pandemic, if there's a federal and state emergency, we are eligible to apply for maximum allotments to be issued to everyone. So even if someone would normally just qualify for $100, they will get the $234 while we're eligible for those, what are called emergency allotments. Okay, next slide. The other thing to keep in mind is that a student has to apply with their whole household that they live with and purchase and prepare their meals together. So you may have roommates, but they don't purchase and prepare meals together. That is fine. But like if they live with a husband and children, they would have to be included in the household for SNAP purposes. But if there are roommates that they purchase and prepare together, then they would be one assistance group. Students who live in dormitories and have like a campus meal program that provides most of their meals, they're not eligible because you know, their food is being provided for them. And then I know there was another question that came in, I saw down in the comments about students who are residents of another state. So this is kind of one of those, so if any of you colleges have commuters from other states where like they go home every night, they would need to apply within their own state's SNAP program. But if you have someone who's coming and living in Ohio during their school time, you know, we don't have a residency durational requirement. And it's not that they have to have an intention to reside here permanently forever. So, you know, if they've like established a residency here, then they should be eligible. Next slide, please, Ebony. Okay, so here's the example of that, what's called EBT card. You'll sometimes see that on your local retailers, grocery stores to signify that they take SNAP. And what happens is this card comes to them, they have to pin it, only, you know, they know the pin, but if they can authorize someone to go purchase groceries for them if they can't. But it can only be used for food for them and their family that they're purchasing for. You know, it's used really to only for food items, but nothing like soap or non-food items, soap, detergent, diapers, those sort of things. And as Jory mentioned, it can be used at farmers markets who have become an authorized retailer and have the special POS equipment that is required. Next slide, please. Fresh EBT is a mobile app not associated with ODJFS, but we find many Ohio SNAP clients do use it. It lets them check their EBT balance, like their SNAP balance, track their spending, and find out when their SNAP deposit is going to occur. It happens on various days throughout the month, depending on like their case number. It's from the 1st to the 20th is when we issue benefits. That's really to help retailers have the items in stock, so they're not depleted at the beginning of the month. So that's why the dates vary throughout the month. But it also helps them find retailers in their area who accept SNAP. And we do hear it's very helpful for individuals. Next slide. Okay, I'm finished here, but thank you. Appreciate the time. And I will be turning it over to Tracy Green now.
Thank you so much, and thank you for allowing me to participate in this conversation today and share a little bit about Lorain County Community College. But before I do that, I do want to extend another thank you to Chancellor Gardner for his leadership and the entire Office of Ohio Department of Higher Education for being proactive in assembling these resources that we truly can wrap around support for students. And we know that they still experience academic barriers, but part of the retention strategy is to break down those other barriers that are not related to academics. And food insecurity has certainly been one that we've been tackling here at Lorain County Community College. And as the pandemic has gone on for now a year, has really just shown us how deep that food insecurity is and how much that we need to partner with our local community through our Lorain County Jobs and Family Services, as well as our local food bank, to really bring the services to people in need when they need it the most. So if we can go on to the next slide. So I'm going to lean towards sharing more about our SNAP outreach grant that we were fortunate to receive, but we have 2 SNAP partnership programs at Lorain County Community College, one of which, again, thank you, Chancellor Gardner, was really stimulated by the Community College Acceleration Program. So this was a pilot program of 5 community colleges that provides support for students for gap funding and tuition, book support, other support that are where people are eligible for SNAP benefits, and they can use an education and training program in lieu of a workforce or a working requirement. And so we've been rolling that out, really packaging that during the pandemic with 21 short-term certificate programs that we have on campus, really geared towards how do we get people back to work? How do we get the education and their skills aligned to in-demand jobs? So that program has been a wonderful way to braid funding across multiple systems, and we're very excited about that pilot program. On the other side, the SNAP outreach grant, you know, there's sometimes that there's a crystal ball that you don't know that you have, but the SNAP program, we actually, with the outreach grant, we started in fall of 2020. And we partnered with our local food bank and our local Office of Jobs and Family Services. We, as the higher education institution, could not be the lead, but we are a partner with a subcontract to fund a part-time outreach specialist. And their job is really to be working back with students on how to access and to educate our student population about what is needed. This individual is actually housed in our ARC, which stands for our Advocacy Resource Center. That opened in the fall of 19, just a few months before the pandemic. And the whole premise of that ARC is a one-stop location and resource base where students, if they have emergency needs, if they are facing barriers, where they can go. And we put this very prominently in on our first floor of our Bass Library, where all of our student intake functions happen. And we also, under that umbrella, added our food pantry to that. So if we can go to the next slide. So just in terms of what that outreach individual does and how that grant works, this has been a great fabric for us to be able to roll out now this expansion of SNAP. They're already ingrained into our campus with Jobs and Family Services and the food bank, and they do just that: pre-screening, application assistance, outreach, from being in the community at food drives and other places to really help people understand what this opportunity is and be working back with our campus advising team at the same time. Next slide, please. So to really build on this story, I want to come back to something that Chancellor Gardner said at the beginning. Our president, Dr. Ballinger, when she took over as president of Lorain County Community College, was holding a forum with students. And one of the things we heard from a student senator who was actively engaged, was a very engaged student, very academically thriving, but that she was going hungry. And she was making the decision between buying supplies or books for her class and feeding her children. And that just set off an entire campus wave of a commitment that no student at Lorain County Community College will go hungry. And from that time, we put together a plan to have an on-campus food pantry. Now, granted, it started literally in a nook on campus, but now has expanded probably 4 times and has been going ever since it started throughout the entire pandemic. In 2018, we were able to expand our impact by and purchasing power by partnering and becoming a location for Second Harvest Food Bank. One of the things that we do know is at a community college, our students are a microcosm of our community. So when we're serving our student, we're serving their families. We're making sure that they're staying employed because many of them are trying to also work and go to school at the same time. And so being able to use the campus as an extension of the community for those services was really important. What we've also recognized is just the increase in demand for our food pantry during the pandemic, an 82% increase in families coming through in searching for that. As we looked at expanding the food pantry during COVID, we needed to move to a roadside pickup. So we actually had the ability for students to sign up for a particular day, and we would deliver the groceries to their cars to keep our safety protocols. We also extended this out to our outreach centers across Lorain County as well. And now we're very excited about how SNAP and the pantry kind of really help fill out that entire package for a student. And it was described earlier about having the ability to locally access food through retailers, through vendors in our own community, not only from an economic development perspective, but also we know transportation is a huge barrier for our students. So for them to have to come to campus and get the food was a barrier in and of itself. So it's being able to package this together where they can use both the food pantry plus the SNAP to really combat the food insecurity that's happening. Next slide, please. So I saw a note in the chat about how do we proactively reach out to students. So Carrie Short, I know you're on here, our Director of Financial Aid, she along with Tracy Maxwell, who's the manager of our ARC program, really came together to say, this is such a valuable program. How do we get the word out? How do we get it to the people in need? And we identified nearly 4,500 students who may be eligible for SNAP. That is nearly half of our headcount here at Lorain County Community College. That's a huge portion that we can help educate and provide this to. So we've been sending out messages to that population, and our outreach specialist is really serving as a point of contact for that. So blending all of these programs together has provided a great foundation for how we can meet food insecurity. Next slide, please. So here's part of the sample language from financial aid with some frequently asked questions. But the really important part is, where do they go next? You know, even if they think they may be eligible, having that one point of contact, being able to have them go back to our ARC and get that follow-up, that next level to take action in a very caring way. You know, we've adopted a culture of care for every student on campus, and that is really exhibited with the work that the ARC does right on the front line. So next slide, please. So here's 3 different strands of how we are trying to get the messaging out, from flyers to the email that I just explained, obviously website information, helping students facilitate the process of going through and becoming eligible, as well as text nudges. We have joined up with a company called Persistence Plus that does nudging along the way, just at certain to students during different times of the semester. And we've added this program into those text nudging. And we're finding that students respond much more quickly and have a greater awareness through texting than through the email conversations. I would say the best though impact is really when you integrate this where students are already coming to, where we're already finding them in the pipeline. So our ARC has been administering emergency aid during the pandemic. In fact, we've had nearly or over $500,000 of emergency aid that has been awarded between March and December, and we're not seeing that decrease at all. And so they are reaching out to those students who have the EFC and receiving emergency aid proactively. So we're trying to put it where students meet them where they're at. When we opened the ARC, another kind of foresight that we weren't really expecting is that on our campus, we actually have a kiosk embedded in the ARC from Lorain County Jobs and Family Services, where individuals can do their confidential scanning of any documents up front, and we can help them in that process and serve as an extension point of Jobs and Family Services. We're also making sure that faculty are aware of food insecurity and the resources that are available, along with all of our ARC staff and advising staff, so that when they do hear the need, they know where to send students. Next slide, please. One fun piece that has been launched here recently in trying to really reach out and reduce that stigma of asking for help is to provide something called a family pantry pack. And so our team reached out to the emergency aid recipients that would meet this qualification and offered just the pantry pack. You know, would you need this? And made it very simple. We had 89 sign up and then be able to pick that up. Follow-up is underway with the student participants to make sure that we're building that awareness the best that we can. So next slide. So additional efforts that are in progress is how do we embed this into our financial aid award letters? When we encourage folks to complete the FAFSA, including reaching down to our high school students that are coming through College Credit Plus that may not have completed the FAFSA yet. We're trying to braid all of that together so that we're working. In fact, Dr. Ballinger just held a superintendent's meeting this week talking about the importance of completing the FAFSA and how do we make sure that these are available there. Working back with student leaders, having that face come really from students, as well as at our outreach centers. And some of those outreach centers are located in the most distressed areas of our county. Next slide, please. So ways that we found that our college can really help assist is helping students guide them through the process as much as possible. Do that hand holding, work back with our strong partnership with Lorain County Jobs and Family Services so that we can help translate, we can help provide that warm handoff and get them the services, get them eligible for what they need the most. We're also on that proactive side of identifying students, but also embedding these types of questions on student intake forms so that we can better understand what is that whole need of a student, from food to transportation to internet. Technology was a big piece, but this allows us to be much more proactive with our student population and to help with that retention during a really difficult period of time. Next slide. And so our ARC has really been leading a lot of that effort, and it has been a great resource for our entire campus to just know when a student needs help, you send them to the ARC, and that's where we do have the kiosk. We have all the staff trained, not only in this program and college programs, but community partners as well, who where students can get all different types of services in food insecurity. One of the pieces that our partnership with Second Harvest, when they've been doing community distributions, we've had our team out there sharing about academic programs like those short-term certificates that are available to folks. So this is a true partnership. We are meeting both students and potential future students at their point of need with that information. So it's really been a community-wide effort, and the expansion of SNAP just really allows us to take it to the next level. Next slide. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Hope.
Awesome. Thank you so very much, Tracy. And since the Chancellor is still on with us, I want to thank him again. Your office has been so responsive to us. As soon as we sent out the memo that Jory and I just created on a limb, I was contacted by Jim immediately. I mean, you all at the Department of Higher Education have been so wonderful to us, and Ohio Department of Jobs and Family Services. So I want to thank you again, Betsy and Jory and Tracy and everyone for sticking with me today. I just have a few slides here, and then there's been a lot of questions, so I want to give folks the opportunity to ask in real time, and we will follow up with anybody afterward if we weren't able to get to your question. Next slide, Ebony. So a lot of materials and a lot of outreach materials have been mentioned by all of our panelists. And so just to reiterate, the Ohio Department of Jobs and Family Services and the Ohio Department of Higher Ed has partnered with the Center for Community Solutions and the Ohio Association of Food Banks to produce the memo, as I just mentioned, of clear actions both financial aid offices and the institutions at large can take to raise awareness of these new flexibilities. The memo has been sent, but we are happy to send it over and over and over again. I know that a lot of these institutions are huge. And so if one person got it, maybe, you know, student affairs across the street didn't get it, and we can send it over and over and over again because we just want to be helpful to you all. Jory is really good with graphics. So she's made a lot of quick and easy graphics that can be printed by any institution for free. Just contact us. Printed, used on social media, can be adapted if you like the words that she used, but you want to put your own branding on these materials, please feel free. We will send it all to you at any time. We also created some letters that can be sent to students that meet the new criteria for eligibility. So these letters can be sent out from financial aid offices, and the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services will use, if the student received this letter, it can be used to verify with them that this student is in fact eligible. So I just wanted to make sure that our contact information will be, is the last slide on here. So please reach out to us. We were more than happy. Ebony, next slide. So I just have two final slides. So some long-term actions to help eliminate food insecurity. Tracy went through a lot of these already, but one of them is seek approval for SNAP benefits to be accepted at on-campus grocery or markets. I think Betsy mentioned at the top of this that, or maybe it was Jory, that retailers have to get approved to be able to accept benefits. And so Ohio University's Jefferson Marketplace is one that I know of that has sought federal approval to accept SNAP benefits already. And they have been doing so for some months now. So that's one highly recommended thing I would recommend, and I would be happy to walk anybody through that process. Next slide, Ebony. And finally, utilize established and trusted student food pantries and programs for advertising the availability of SNAP and help to screen individuals for eligibility. Lots of times, students themselves work at these food pantries and food banks on campus. And so a quick sending these materials to them so that they can help, peer-on-peer relationships are oftentimes the key to reducing stigma here, especially with SNAP and benefit programs. And so kind of training, maybe informally training the students to help their fellow students to say, hey, I know about these flexibilities. I think you would qualify. Let's go over this paperwork before they go to Job and Family Services or before they formally apply. Could be incredibly helpful. And finally, and I think Tracy mentioned this already, but include information about SNAP in student financial aid award packages. And she had a good point about high school seniors. I didn't even think about that, Tracy. So doing that outreach and folks that have been accepted into institutions, award letters that are coming out shortly, I'm sure, just including this information about SNAP. And again, me and Jory would be happy to help frame anything that anybody wants to run by us. And we'd be happy to double check with Betsy that it's right before we get back to you. Next slide, Ebony. So yeah, questions and answers. There's quite a few questions in the chat. We've been trying to keep up, Jory and I, but I know that there's some that we missed.
Yeah, and thanks, Hope. There were many questions, and we were just concerned that we might run out of time without being able to answer all of them. So we were trying to go through and respond to as many as we could. I'll try to recap if you'd like some of the. I lost my chat box here. There it is. Some of the more frequently asked ones. So there were several questions related to residency, learning virtually, state and county, how to know what county to apply through, or whether they apply in Ohio, depending on. So Betsy, if you wouldn't mind just going back to that point.
Yes, so they should apply at the county job and family services that they live, wherever they live. So if they are a Columbus State student, but they live in Licking County, they would need to apply at the Licking County Job and Family Services. Or if they apply online, it will route them to the correct county job and family services. So it's all one application online. Was there another question attached to that, Jory? Did I address it? Oh, out of state. That's right. So there was one question in the chat that was a student living here in Ohio, but enrolled in virtually participating at a college in Colorado. They should apply in Ohio because that is where they live and reside. And then their student status would just have to be verified by that out of state college. And so that's why when I spoke earlier, that if you have a student that's commuting from another state to your school, they would need to apply within their state that they reside in.
That's true. It highlights how complex all of this outreach is for you, so we don't want to discount that it's not as simple as we're making it necessarily, but appreciate you working through all of those different situations. Some folks asked about having access to the outreach materials that Hope mentioned, as well as copies of the slides or the webinar recording. And I know that the Center for Community Solutions has put the link to this where the slides will be available in the chat, but I'm sure that we could also follow up by email with links to those materials as well. So we'll make sure that everyone who registered today for the webinar has access to those materials and the slides.
And yeah, that, oh, I'm sorry, Hope.
Oh, no, go ahead, Betsy, go ahead.
Those materials have how they can apply online and the phone number that they can call that will route them to the correct county job and family services as well.
Kathleen asked a question I don't know that we've responded to yet. Are students that are dependents eligible for SNAP, or is it calculated on parents' income? I'm sure Betsy can answer that more with more specificity than me.
So if they're living at home with parents, then a student under 22 has to be included with their parents in the SNAP household. But if they're over 22, they have to indicate that they have to not purchase and prepare their meals together. I don't know. I was living with my mom after 22 at some point and in school, and I was eating with her. So, you know, it kind of depends on their living situation with their parents.
There was a question about grad students, which I believe, trying to scroll up. Maybe I made it up. I thought there was a question as to assure that this applied to grad students as well.
You know what? Go ahead. Oh, go ahead, Jory. Were you going to say something? You know what? I don't want to say definitively yes or no. I feel like this is not. I would have to check on that, and maybe we can send something out. Off the top of my head, I'm uncertain with that question. There was a question about, can EBT cards be used in any state? Yes, they can be used anywhere that accepts EBT. Even you know, if it might show like if you're in Kentucky and it shows their card, they accept all SNAP across the nation. And then I know one of our attendees is a JFS director, and she mentioned the online purchasing that is available, that became available during the pandemic. And right now, Amazon and Walmart are part of that. The only thing that you have to note is that if there's a fee for delivering the groceries, that can't be paid for with the SNAP benefit. And I can't guarantee that Amazon or Walmart at the time, I can't remember, I apologize, if they've waived the fee for SNAP recipients, but I know that's been talked about. But that's another way that individuals can get their groceries.
And you know what, there was another really good question. This might go back to some of the nuances with college students related to summer break, if they're no longer residing on campus, or if they are but no longer attending school during the summer, if they're not enrolled, or maybe they're enrolled less than half time. Betsy, can you talk about how they would handle those changes with their county office, or could they gain eligibility during the summer?
Yeah, if they're not eligible under their current circumstances, they should always reapply when their circumstances change, so that can be reevaluated. Or if they go home for for the summer, they can always call their JFS and indicate that change or whatnot. Really kind of depends on everyone's situation. So it's always better to just call and ask and see what what they may need to do, or reapply if they were denied before.
I think we had one more. So what is defined as most meals covered under a meal plan? So from my understanding of this, Betsy, and correct me if I'm wrong, and we've had this question a couple of times, so I think this is a good one to address again. So some meal plans, from my understanding, cover like 1 meal a day. So you'll get like 7 a week or 5. They always have these fun names, 5 a week or whatever. So from my understanding, 1 meal a day is not most meals. Is that correct, Betsy?
Right.
So yeah, so it's defined as you're supposed to eat 3 meals a day. If your meal plan doesn't cover most of that, majority of that, then you would be eligible.
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to pull up the rule on that exactly, because it is not so black and white to say, this, and this. So, really if the student is unsure, they should just take what their meal plan is and provide it to the County Job and Family Services, so that determination can be made.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Betsy. I know most of these questions were on you. So since we're at 1, we're going to wrap this one up, and I appreciate you all for sticking with us for this long. And Jory and my contact information is throughout the chat. So I'm hoping that was caught by anybody who needed it. I will send it one more time. And we would be, again, more than happy. We actually talked to some folks at OSU yesterday, so we were happy to hop on Zoom or Teams or anything that can be helpful to you all or your institutions. Or if you have any just short questions or small questions, or just want materials, just feel free to reach out to us, and we would be more than happy to help you. I thank you all for joining us this afternoon. Hoping that contact information, and thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hope. Thanks, Tracy, Betsy.
Thanks, everyone.